Shut up and sit down.
Guess what we just baked up? 375 degrees for 90 minutes. Straight to you for your podcast pleasure. The Dialed Podcast. Enjoy the show. Hey, welcome back to the Dialed Podcast. I'm Jake Von Deering, and today I am here with Matt LeGrand,
Hey, what is happening?
Evan Price,
How's it going?
and Lance Hepler.
Lance Romance in the house.
Bringing it strong.
The intro game has been up.
That's sticking. That's definitely sticking.
Good times. Hey, welcome back for another edition of the Dialed Podcast. Thank you for joining us. And we are here, and we are actually enjoying a nice little cup of something. Matt, why don't you tell us a little bit about this?
It's not coffee this time. Yeah. We are enjoying an Alassian IPA, and it's called Stardust or something like that.
Yeah.
I just glanced at it, and the brewery is from Seattle, Washington. So, yeah, not bad.
Sounds
good.
Magical.
It is
too good.
not too, yeah. You should have a sip, yeah.
Yeah, what do you guys been up to? What'd you have going on today, Evan?
Well, I ate some dark chocolate and I worked and trained super early this morning because I got to.
So yeah, we got that text. It was like 4:30 or something in the morning. Was that when you started, or were you just finishing?
Started at 4,
Yeah.
But that was that's when I was finishing.
I got that same text. Got the
Yeah.
huh?
So yeah, what was the workout?
The workout was 2.5 hours with 2 by 20 minute zone 3 progression to zone 3, and then a quick 10K run off the bike, and the 10K was hard. So
Yeah, was it dark when you were dropping?
It actually is actually
was
just
coming
getting light when
Pretty?
I was running.
It's probably pretty this morning.
It was very Someone's coming out around 6:45, 6:50.
So off the bike, right into pace. Mm-hmm. How are the legs feeling?
Legs are feeling good. I'm surprised. I'm coming to the end of a big training block, and I just had a 24-hour flu, which was great.
Yay.
We could have we have a bit about training through sickness. Bad idea sometimes, good idea other times.
Yeah,
So.
no, I think that's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah. How about you, Matt? Did you get on any kind of bicycle or running shoe?
So no, I just kind of took a bit of a recovery day and got in the water. And so I feel like swimming is like rejuvenating. Like, you guys, if you don't swim, you should. I know, Jake, you don't swim, but you should, because like you can. I feel like there's just something about it. You get in the water, it's like the bubbles or something. You're underwater, and it's just like, I didn't swim that much, maybe a mile or something, and it was great.
Maybe a mile.
I did some stuff that was fast, and the coach on deck had us like kicking more, and I like checked one of the 100-meter splits, and I was like, wow, that was like 118. I was like, that's not bad.
Ooh.
I know. I was like,
Matt's swim is coming. We're having some fun open water swimming this season.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Well, so maybe I need to kick more. I don't know.
As usual, I'll be out there with my rowboat.
There you go. Yeah. The little bike paddle boat thingies. There you go.
Lance, you get on the bike today?
I did not, but let me be clear for my friends who know me that I am not drinking the IPA, just so that they don't assume that I am.
Yeah.
I am not a beer drinker.
He's drinking the very, very, very watered down version. Yeah.
I've got a tall glass of water here.
It's got the main ingredient. That's it.
Yeah. It's hard to say that you have a tall glass of water when right when you're in the middle of a keg stand. People, it's a podcast. They have no idea.
Yeah.
Funny thing, might be a funny story, might be weird for you to hear, but I have actually never tasted beer in my entire life.
I bet you wouldn't like it.
Gosh.
No.
Because it's a totally an acquired taste, right?
Yes.
Like coffee is like the same thing. So coffee is like not that good until you've been drinking it for a long time, and then you crave it.
I really do think though, like a good glass of like orange juice is always going to taste better to me. I mean, I love the taste of beer. I love the taste of coffee. But if there was no benefit to coffee or beer outside of just drinking it, like I would absolutely choose apple juice every single time.
I would disagree.
It's definitely an acquired taste. Yeah. And that, I've said this before. It's like if there was no alcohol in beer at all, it was just like no problem. I would be more for it. Like I would be more interested in it.
Part of waking up is IPA in your cup.
Yeah.
Who needs coffee? Matt's just drinking his non-alcoholic IPAs.
If it was non-alcoholic, I'd be all
Is that
about
a thing? A non-alcoholic IPA?
Is
that possible?
No, they make non-alcoholic beer. It's just not very good.
Odell's,
Odell's and things like that.
Yeah.
I don't think it has quite the same flavor. Yeah. So
you guys watching anything cool on TV or any recent movies? Anything good out there right now? Something to kind of
What's
entertain us while we're on our trainer, slogging out the miles.
So many bike races. I'm just watching YouTube full races right now.
Yeah.
I'm really into spring bike
You
racing
guys
right now.
seen that documentary on Netflix? Is it Icarus? Is that Icarus?
Icarus. Yeah.
Flew too close to the sun.
Right?
Yeah.
I've been meaning. It's on my list. It's like we can't talk about it too much because it's in my hit list of things to watch. So I need a long trainer ride, which we need some bad weather so that I can get a nice trainer ride in. And then I can,
some rain's coming this weekend.
And it also, for me, like if I'm going to watch a movie on the trainer, it's probably like an easy trainer day. So that's what I need to watch that movie.
It's a fantastic documentary. It's very well done. It's very interesting. It takes a turn that you're not quite expecting.
Yeah.
So this is the kind of the story of Russian state-sponsored drug.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's what it kind of got into. I'm only halfway through. I had a really rough training schedule, and it led to me being pretty fatigued last night on the couch. So I only got about a third or maybe halfway through that, and Sonsies after that. So I got to go pick back up where I left off. But maybe Lance can give us a little bit better,
Basically, it's about this guy. He's in his 40s. And he decides that he is going to do a full year of systematic doping with whatever the best doping things he can do.
Wasn't he following Lance's protocol?
Yeah,
something that was somewhat close.
Something close to what Lance's protocol was. Yeah.
How heroic! What a sacrifice!
Yes. So he made it a documentary, and it took a weird turn. I guess I don't want to get into it too much because I don't want to spoil it.
It's so tough not to spoil
Yeah,
it.
I don't
It's
want
so
to
good.
spoil
Though.
it.
For anybody who's listening to this and has not heard, watched it, you better watch it soon because we're going to talk about this in future podcasts.
Yeah, this could be the warning. Like, hey, Matt, Jake, finish the movie because we are going to talk about it. Spoiler alert has been laid on. So I have a question for you guys. Regarding drug testing or whatever. What is to stop a race director from threatening to drug test, right? Like I get that drug testing is expensive and blah, 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 and whatever, it has to be sanctioned. But what if a race director was just like, hey, we're going to do 50 random drug tests. Like, if you're signed up for this race, great. Like we have your race money. We've got your entry fees. We're going to do this, this is because we're, USA cycling certified whatever race or USA, triathlon certified race, and we need to do our drug testing. What's to stop the race director from just threatening to do it and then not doing it?
My first answer is money. I think that's what stops them because it's going to cost them something to run the test. And most race directors are, it's not a volunteer thing. They're trying to make money. No. And so they're trying to attract as many participants as they can.
Sure. Yeah.
And if they're going to start spooking people off by drug tests, that brings up a good question though. How many people do you think in your local amateur races?
Most of the local stuff is zero, right? So
that's what you would think.
But they're human.
Oh, no, you mean, you're saying what percentage are doing things?
What percentage are actually doing something?
I think it's on the rise, and my theory is because the late night infomercials of like, are you tired? Do you feel tired? Are you not as fast as you used to be when you were? Well, you should talk to your doctor about low testosterone. And I just think that a lot of people will think that it's like, oh no, I have a medical condition. Like I'm okay to take testosterone and go race. No, you're not. Turns out you're really not allowed to do that. So
this is my opinion on this. I think as you get a little bit older, I think in the over 40s, I think you're going to see a lot of the human growth hormone and the testosterone boosting. Yeah. But in my age groups, a little bit younger, I think you see a lot of overuse of things like cortisol or like any like albuterol. So a lot of the sports asthma sort of conditions. Mm-hmm. I knew kids who, at least for track, would absolutely did not have asthma or a script for albuterol and were using it before races, which is when we're talking about small gains, there's a couple studies out there to point that albuterol does increase performance in the short term, like short bursts of
and they have limits on that,
power.
right? I mean, they wouldn't have limits on that particular drug if it wasn't for the benefit.
And some of these drugs pass through your system really quickly. I mean, you look at it like, where do we draw the line on what's a PED and what's not a PED? Caffeine is a PED.
Absolutely.
I mean, there are studies to show that caffeine is a PED.
And for a long time, before your time, they had limits on how much caffeine you could have. And athletes would actually run into trouble. According to them, they would say like, well, I had 8 cups of coffee and I hit the limit of this caffeine. And they would test positive for too much caffeine in their system. Mm-hmm. So that used to be a real like offensible, whatever, you probably get a warning or something, but still it was a situation that people had to be aware of. So, now they don't care about caffeine because you were able to hit that limit with coffee or whatever it is. But yeah, so people will have little caffeine pills, right? A lot of the pro Pelotons still do this.
Right.
I do caffeine pill. Yeah.
I mean, I take in a ton of caffeine during races.
It's fair. I mean, I feel like, so my big thing is like, it has to be fair, if caffeine's legal, fine. Like if crack rock is legal, fine. Right. Like it needs to be fair. Right. Well, I mean, like that, we have these rules and it's like, let's not have EPO because your heart can stop. Right. Like we have these rules for a reason. And the rules are this, and people need to follow the rules, and then you have fair competition. So
So would you deem it fair that once a male hits 40, that his natural testosterone levels start to come down? That it's okay and it's fair for everybody if once you hit that magical 40 mark to go into your doc and get that testosterone patch, slap it on yourself, and all of a sudden you're out there, playing like a 20-something.
Here's the one problem with that. Speaking from a medical point of view.
Yep.
Is your body over long periods of time, if you are using a testosterone supplement you do not need one, will decrease natural production of testosterone, which I don't want to see that happen in the over 40 cycling community. All of a sudden, I don't want like every guy reaching 60 and all of a sudden having like, major thyroid issues or anything like that.
Yeah. So. Gynematostoma and major estrogen issues. And, oh gosh, so many crazy things. And what's interesting here, where we race OBRA, the Oregon Bicycle Racing Association, from what I know and from what I've talked to other people, I've never heard of a single person one time being tested. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it just doesn't happen.
It's honor system racing. Amateur racing in the Northwest is honor system racing.
We know honor system doesn't work, though. I'm being such a pessimist here, but it doesn't.
I
agree. People are going to push that line. They always do.
If you go back to Matt's original question.
So that was my original question. So what about just threatening to do it and not doing it?
And then we've got all these people that are signed up for this race and they're pre-reg and all that other stuff. And how many people don't show up to the race and you're like, oh crap, I don't want to get tested.
Well, and I think Lance's point was like, you're still, your race is going to have less numbers. Then next year they're not going to sign up for your race. It will eventually hurt them financially. Yeah. Well, if it might be a very small percentage, we don't know.
You don't know.
And does the racing community want to open up that Pandora's box? Let's say that this is a bigger problem than people would guess.
Right. Like if it's 10% of, I'm going to blame guys because I think it's guys. Yeah. If it's 10% of the guys doing this or whatever it is, then like that's a little chunk of change for a race director.
Yeah. Yes, not to mention the fact that across the country and even here, numbers are on the decline. The cycling community is big time. It's all shrinking. I mean, they're losing numbers to other.
Right. I mean, you can do Spartan races, and all this other stuff. Yeah.
So. Very interesting topic and definitely something that you could debate and go back and forth on.
It's a big, deep, dark hole that we go down.
That's true.
We're going to go deep into that dark hole at some point.
This is just one of those topics that's going to be continually coming up because I get together with other like runner friends and stuff like that, and we're just thinking, especially like those Ironman races, it's just like, hey, you were fifth. How many of those guys that were ahead of you were taking something? It's like, I don't know. Like, who knows? You can't ever guess. You can't play that guessing game. Yeah. So we're going to talk about this in the future. Oh. It's just going to come up.
If it's worth anything, I'm happy to pee in a cup, take my hair, take blood, stool samples. I don't care. You can have whatever you want. I'm clean. I'm going out there and I'm doing my thing. And there'll be coming a time that I have to,
So my other idea,
it's not there anymore.
My other race director idea is have like athletes say like, pay for your own like drug testing. Like, it's $10 extra or whatever, like pay for your own drug testing. Like, I think that would be cool. I would
There's some peer pressure that could go on there too. Because if I submitted mine and said, why didn't you submit yours?
I like that.
I'm clean.
It's like,
I would do nothing to hide.
But then again, it comes back to Lance's point of like, you might scare off participants and that's a problem. Yeah. So,
but if those participants are leaving the sport and they're dirty, is that a bad thing?
Yeah, I don't know.
This is true. I mean,
only for the race director who makes less money.
Calling out all your race directors out there.
Then you need to fire up the teams out there like Dialed Cycling to recruit and get some more people out there. I mean, we've brought in the past year, I think it's 25 or 30 people who have never raced before, and they are now card-carrying members of OBRA, and they're racing for the first time, and they're learning the ropes. And we're going to try and help grow and promote road racing, mountain bike racing, cyclocross, time trial, the whole gamut. And got to get it done.
I think
out with the old and in with the new.
Yeah, I think this whole pressure to dope in the amateur world comes from, I mean, it's a cultural thing on teams. If you're around guys who are doing that, you're going to be more likely to get into those situations where, you're pushing the line. I don't think there are many people that are openly doping. Like, I don't think people are going out there and seeking docs like this Icarus documentary and
Right.
like doing all that. I think what you're seeing though is people push those lines, find those, I know I've seen, in Bicycling Magazine, the like natural EPO supplements.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pushing a line. If you're getting that, if you can put yourself
Yeah,
into that mindset where you're able to justify something like that, you're not that far off from justifying really getting close to that,
Yeah,
that
that
gray
looks
line.
that looks like snake oil, right? I mean,
I'm sure it's a complete
Right.
placebo, but I mean, it's that mindset. If you're a person that can get into that mindset and be okay with taking that, then
Well, we'll have to dive into this
Sure.
at a later date and kind of discuss it a little bit more. There's a
totally
lot of
sidetracked
different.
us, yeah.
There's a lot about this. So we'll finish watching that documentary and we'll come back to it another time. So, all right, let's jump into our first topic, and that topic is going to be training tech. So let's run around the table here. I want to hear some cool tech that you guys are using or are interested in using, or have you been researching and looking into, and hear kind of what your thoughts are on that. And we'll just go to my left here,
Sure.
Mr. Matt. Why
Yeah,
don't you
absolutely.
lead us off?
Yeah. So one piece of technology that I think is interesting. It's one of those things that you check out and you're like, okay, like doesn't seem that great until you have it. I was biking with you, I think, and I saw this. It's Garmin's radar. First of all, Garmin purchased the company that had built this radar technology. It's a radar, a small light radar that goes on the back of your bike. And I'm super into safety. Like, my wife and I are super paranoid. Like, anything that could potentially save you, extra lights. I'm like a Christmas tree out there just lit up on the road, like trying to be safe, trying not to get by any cars. But the radar is fantastic because it sits on the back of your bike, and it will beep at you, when there's cars coming up on you, and then you can actually glance at your bike computer and you can actually see how many cars there are. So you don't do that thing where, okay, the car passed me, and you hear the car pass and you slide back out, right? Like, like, oh no, there's 3 cars coming. Like, don't slide back out, because I've made that mistake.
Plus, it's not just a
scary.
beep. It shows you how close they're getting. So you're not looking over your left shoulder and veering out into the lane.
You see the progress of the cars coming up on you, which is really nice.
What's it called?
It's called the Garmin
Varia radar.
Varia. Okay.
Radar, yep.
So the other piece of that is Garmin just released an update to the product, and it used to be like this horizontal like set of lights, and I would just sit behind Jake drafting like I always do, and then you can actually watch the lights, and they'll blink like 3 or whatever, like there's no traffic, and then they get wider, so you get more lights when there's cars like coming up on you. So even if one of your cycling buddies has this radar, it's still like nice because you can be sucking wheel and not have to turn completely around to look for a car. You can just notice the lights that are getting wider.
And we have just, I don't know, something happened at some point in time. You ended up getting one as well eventually. And so I remember one day I didn't have mine.
Right.
And I'm like, oh crap, I feel like I'm running around in my underwear now because I don't have my Garmin rearview radar. So I actually connected mine to yours on your bike. And so it was on my head display, and I could actually see the cars coming, which was kind of a neat thing.
If one person from the group has it, theoretically, you guys could all hop on board and get the bike, the alerts for cars, and see the number of cars that are coming up on you.
So
it's a cool little piece of tech, and I know our listeners, there's a couple questions that they're going to ask. One is, why don't you just buy an effing mirror and put it on your, either on your handlebar or on your, and I think that's a great idea. Like, you should do that too. Like, anything for safety, like, you should do it. But this is just better because it's right in front of your face, and you're not taking your eyes off the road or anything like that. You're not looking to the corner or whatever. It's an interesting thing, to consider. And it is a little pricey. So I don't remember how much it costs, like $200.
$199.
Okay. Yeah. So
And you have to have a Garmin head unit for it to
truly do its thing,
to show up. You can buy that as an optional piece too if you want to have it separate. At least you used to be able to. That might be different.
Yeah,
now,
you can. There's a separate part that you can strap. You don't have to actually have the edge unit up there or whatever unit.
Yeah, and I think it's an open protocol. So other head units like Wahoo could theoretically implement that if they were interested in implementing that on their computers. So we'll see. You know, I mean, I think it's an interesting piece of technology. They've just updated it, and I think the update is better. It's not horizontal anymore. It's vertical light, so it looks a little bit more natural.
A little bit more streamlined, a little bit more aerodynamic. Yeah.
Seems like it would be the right thing to do. So
there's another level to that, and it kind of goes into that whole cats and dogs and cyclists and motorists kind of thing. Basically, motorists, one of their biggest pet peeves is cyclists being in the road or being in the way, or obstructing their ability to go flying down the road. Heaven forbid we inconvenience them by 3, 4, 5 seconds. I'm sorry about that. And you have this giant motor that you can get right back up to speed with. But for us as a cyclist, it lets us know that there's a car coming, and if there's a couple different scenarios where you typically want to ride in a bike lane, but more times than not, we all know that bike lanes are just littered full of garbage. I mean, there's everything from glass to screws to nails to dead animals to you name it. It's in the bike lane, so that's kind of where things go and pile up until
that's what bunny hopping is for, Jake.
Yeah, but then you find yourself just constant in the bunny hop. You're like, all right, what's that guy doing on his bike? So you tend to find yourself riding closer to that white line, and even sometimes coming out into traffic because you just don't want to be stopping with the flat, or you don't want to be hitting stuff and crashing, or you get the knucklehead that's over there parking his car in the bike lane. So for me though, what I've come to find is like I'll ride like a little bit further out closer to the lane, but when I know a car's coming, I'll go in there and I'll fight the debris to give that car a clean line to pass and to give them ample space so that they can pass me with 3 feet of room, so that it's kind of a, hey, I'm doing my part to give you as much space as I can. And hopefully because you're seeing me do that, you're going to do the same. And then we can be, in this world together. It's like we can coexist.
And with the radar, you can time it, right? Like you can look at it and you can say, okay, this car's, you can actually see how fast the car's coming up on you and adjust accordingly.
Yeah. And it actually has another feature on there too for all the head units that have color. It will actually, it's normally orange. It'll alert you in orange that a car's coming, and you'll see this little blip off the side, and the blip moves up the screen as it gets closer to you. And once they pass, it turns green, meaning that you're free and clear. If a car's coming at a high rate of speed, it's not orange, it's red. So it really tells you like, hey, this guy's, he's getting after it. So really get over.
Yeah.
So that's one of those, like, let's coexist. And then where we ride here in the Pacific Northwest, up here in the suburbs of Portland, there's a little town called Washougal. It's my heaven on earth for riding bicycles. It's all country roads. There's no bike lanes back there. So and I love the people of Washougal. Don't take this the wrong way, but some of y'all, don't like bicycles, and you got your Confederate flag flying off the back, and you got your big diesel truck rolling coal on all of us cyclists. Come on, man. But anyway, I'm going to at least, I know you're coming. I'm going to get over and ride that fog line, because that's my bike lane. It's that 4 or 5 inch fog line. So it lets me kind of like ride out on that country road and have some peace of mind that a car's going to pop up on that thing, and I can at least come over and not get run over by.
My greatest fear is being found dead in a ditch after riding somewhere, but it's not actually being dead in the ditch, because I've lived a good life and I'm all good. So if that's all,
I like that.
That's romance.
That's romance. But what my biggest fear is that I'm found dead in a ditch and I've got Taylor Swift or Justin Bieber blaring in my earphones.
Wait, you didn't hear the Taylor. There was a Taylor Swift reference earlier in the podcast.
Oh no!
So
it's got to be one per podcast.
One Taylor Swift.
And here's the thing that's wild too, that I think some motors don't realize, is that most people who ride bicycles also drive cars.
Yeah,
and that's pay taxes.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Pay fuel taxes to build said roads. Yeah,
I usually give the cyclist a little bit of space, even though I got places to go fast. But you
guys know why
lose 3 seconds.
Very first road in the United States was made, right?
For bicycles, please.
Yes, bicycles. The very first road in the United States was made for bicycles, not automobiles. But that's a whole nother conversation that people are going to want to bitch and moan about.
Or my favorite is, why don't cyclists pay road taxes? It's like, well, most of us have license to drive cars too, so we're doing that.
Yeah, we're just out getting a little bit of exercise, heaven forbid.
And together we weigh about 180 pounds with the bike, maybe. So it's not quite the damage on the road that a car causes.
Yeah. So anyway, back to those Garmin Vector 3s.
Yeah, so
that's
totally
one of my favorite things. Thank you very much for bringing that up. That was on my list. You stole it from me, but it's all good.
Sorry. So this is that was my tech topic. So I didn't mean to. We totally sidetracked into cars, cars and cycling safety and things like that. But going forward,
we never tangent.
No.
So
Evan, tech. Any tech?
I'm gonna plug something here that's a little bit selfish,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
so I'm part owner in Edge Cycling Technologies. You can look that up on the book face, on my book face, or on the website that we have up.
Your book face, huh?
And we are just now releasing the Physio Saddle. I am receiving a prototype in the mail here for something that we have been working on for a year and like 2 months now, which is wild to think that this is
What's
finally
the official
here.
name of it? One more time.
The Physio Saddle.
Physio Saddle.
Yep.
Very cool.
Inspired by, so my good buddy Shane Page is a DPT out in Ohio, and I was his student on my very last clinical as a student, and we became real good friends. And he one day, knew that I'm a really avid cyclist and said, "Hey, I've had this idea for a really long time. Let's go drink beers in my basement and carve into foam until this becomes a thing." And we did that, and the Physio Saddle was born. The idea behind it is very much so cycling saddles have been shaped roughly the same since before 1900.
Since they made that first road for bicycles.
Since then, the saddle has basically looked the same.
Okay.
It is convex surfaces. To the closest thing since has been flat surfaces. They've developed into cutouts along your sacrum or your SI joint. Mm-hmm. Well, the funny thing to me is that they call that pubic symphysis relief, but your pubic symphysis is actually never really coming into contact with the saddle. It's kind of there's been a lot of promises that saddles have made in production that are not anatomically correct. So me and Shane were kind of annoyed by that and created something and described it as exactly what it is. It's mirroring your ischial tuberosities, which are your sit bones, and it exactly mirrors that in a concave surface. If you think most joints in our body are convex on concave. And that's how the body works. So why can't a saddle work that way was our theory. And we have been testing the heck out of them. And we have prototypes now that we're proud to say we're sponsoring the person who's doing Ride Across America.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a good sponsor.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it, right?
His name's Joe Lawhorn. I will be mentioning him quite a bit this summer when he's going across. We'll be tracking him pretty actively. But
that would be cool to track. I mean, that'd be something cool to talk about on the podcast.
Yeah.
Too.
Oh yeah, Race Across America is absolutely, and it came
That's
through
an amazing event.
Oh yeah, it came through Lebanon, Ohio, usually, which was where the old bike shop that I used to work at was. So we were really active in that. And Joe's like the son of Ohio. He's very proud of Ohio, and he's gonna go out there and race our saddle. And
wow.
it's gonna be awesome. He's a great guy.
The whole idea is that there's just less pressure on your tender bits down there.
Yes.
Basically.
So I'm sure. Have you guys heard of the condition Alcock's Canal Syndrome? It's why your parts go numb.
Gotcha. The numbness is no fun to deal with.
So not only is there a lot of pressure on your sit bones with that convex surface of of all saddles out there, there's also impinging. So there's nerves that come right through there. There's a lot of nerves that come through there. Your sacral plexus shoots off a lot of nerves that go to your genitalia, and it is absolutely a nightmare on the canals that go right by the ITs, which are those sit bones. So you can imagine, I mean, every cyclist listening to this right now, if your junk has not gone numb at some point during a ride, right, you are a lucky human being, because we all know that sensation. And the goal of this was to now create an actual concave surface, not just pad it up, not just take a convex surface and pad the heck out of it, but actually turn that into almost like a cupping, since sort of shape to actually provide some relief for that area and not just load it up with more and more gel.
So how about range of motion? I mean, I'm thinking about like cupping and range of motion.
Yeah,
that could be.
There's a big slope out to the nose that you can actually come out onto, and the saddle is designed to be at about a 10 to 15 degree tilt, and forward and anteriorly, as we put it there. But that is basically to give you that it's almost more of a saddle that really is effective for time trialists, because it allows that sloping forward without that major pressure when you're. I mean, I know that anybody here who's ridden in a Damo or a Cobb saddle knows that if you're a thin to pelvis person, as you go out over that nose, that's painful. So it's not a smooth transition for those saddles.
I have a Dash saddle. You should totally like hop on and just check it out sometime.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it's a traditional saddle. It's not like anything like what you're describing.
Yeah.
But you should check it out. I mean, it's different, and you're into saddles, so you want to check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And then this is what you're riding.
So the prototype is coming out to me, and I'm putting it on my road bike, so I can be riding on it quite a bit because I'll only have one prototype for a little bit.
Give feedback and adjust.
Yep.
Okay.
And then we have a lot of we have a buddy of mine out in Colorado who's also has one of the prototypes. We gave one to Joe Lawhorn and a couple people back in Dayton, Ohio. And then production is basically once we shore up a couple of the little adjustments we're making, it's going to be in full production.
If you are like in love with the saddle, you moving it to your triathlon bike?
Yeah.
Is that the plan? Just kind of see how it goes.
But I'm probably going to leave it on my road bike for a while because I'm going to, after this summer, get in some long miles on the road bike, and I want to try and ride the saddle as much as possible, and that'll be my more high volume bike.
What's your current saddle on your tri bike?
It's like what came with my Specialized.
Okay.
By like just stock.
Well, I kind of feel like Specialized makes decent saddles.
They do,
have that,
yeah.
I don't remember what they call their system or whatever, but I feel like they've put some time into kind of designing their saddles.
Yeah.
So.
And I think once you've been riding for a while too, I mean, I think the typical response we got when we were doing market research was, well, I've ridden my saddle and it's fine, or I've ridden some different saddles and they're fine. But I think we kind of wanted to adjust that to make people realize that there is some long-term damage from sitting on that cycling seat, and it's well documented. I mean, Alcock's canal syndrome is just one of the many different neuritis or neural issues that you can have from long-term sitting in the saddle. So
that is exciting stuff, man.
Yeah, that is cool.
We'll see how this summer goes. It's going to be interesting.
Prototype. You just have to keep us posted on like, each step, like, and we're past the prototype phase, and like we're looking for production stuff. Like, I'm curious. So keep us posted. I think people will be interested. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Very cool. Thank you, Lance.
My latest favorite piece of tech is the new bike computer from Garmin. It's the Garmin Edge 1030. It's their latest update to their bike computer, and it's got one really cool feature, which is called courses. I tend to travel a fair amount, and I try to take my bike with me when I travel. And for me, when I go to a new place, I want to ride a cool spot or find something cool, and it's always a bit of a challenge to try to find where the cool spot or where the good spot is to ride. And so often, I'll search through the segment explorer on Strava and find a segment that's super popular, and then try to look up a few people who have done that segment, and then look at the ride they did, and then try to follow the map that they did. It's like
it's a process.
Yes, it's a process. It might take a half an hour or 45 minutes just to figure out where I'm going to ride. But with this Garmin Edge 1030, it's this courses feature. You open up the courses feature, and you can have it search for a course for you. And you can say, I want to do a 50-mile out and back ride, or I want to do a 50-mile loop ride. And you hit the search button, and it will, within 30 seconds or a minute, it will give you 3 options. Wow. And so you click on the option, you look at the map, and it shows you general elevation gain for that and where the loop is, and you just hit, yes, I want to do that one, and then it gives you directions as you're riding. Yeah. So you don't have to think about it. You just pop it back on your bike, and you just follow the directions.
Turn by turn directions.
Yes, turn by turn directions.
To play the Indiana Jones theme song while you're rolling.
That's right.
There you go.
And if you get off course, it course corrects for you.
Very cool.
It's not you're off course. It says, okay, go to the next light and take a left. So
does it do a pretty good job at choosing like light trafficked areas, or is that?
Yes, it doesn't do a perfect job at that.
Yeah.
There, I have had a few times where I'm like, why am I riding on the side of the highway a while here? but for the most part, it picks low traffic roads or bike lanes or bike paths and things. So it's been pretty good.
I wonder if, from a software standpoint, if Garmin is leaning on all of their data.
Yes, it's purely from data.
Yeah, I mean, that's really hard to do, right? You're writing like an algorithm that's looking at stuff based on a whole bunch of data points and finding out like what's popular. Yeah, that's tricky.
Yeah,
that's really hard.
Yeah, so that's where all these courses come from. It tries to pick. I might tell it I only have time to do 25 miles or something, and so it will pick the most popular routes for 25 miles. So, yeah.
There was another cool feature about that. I demoed that unit for a couple months, and one of the things I kind of liked about it, and I don't think there's an application for this in the mountain bike, but definitely on the road bike, is you're cruising along and you're coming in hot and flying down this road that you've never been on before, and then it pops up on the screen. It's like, hey, sharp turn coming up.
It says sharp bend ahead.
Yeah,
yes.
exactly, and it tells you about how far it is, and it lets you know as you're getting closer. So, I mean, the last thing you want to do is coming down a hill, and I know these roads that I've ridden on when I was using it, and I was curious how that would work, and sure enough, it works. I mean, you're coming down 45 miles an hour on this road, and sometimes it'll have like a 20-mile-an-hour sweep on it, and it pops up, and you're like, that's nice, because if I'm somewhere where I'd never been before, I don't know if I'd necessarily be going that fast, but you don't want to come into something 40 miles an hour, and it's a 20-mile-an-hour bend, and you don't know if it's a clean turn or, full of like dirt and all that other stuff. So you want to be able to get on top of things and be safe, and it's kind of a neat feature.
Yeah.
So, hi, Doug.
There's Doug. Doug the cat.
Well, podcast needs an animal of some sort.
He's got things to say. I mean, he's telling me all these things in my ear, and I'm not even coming with my own thoughts. I'm just saying what Doug's thinking half the time. So.
Yes. Doug the cat's like, yeah, the 1030 Garmin, guys.
No, swing and a miss there, Mr. Doug. Doug is my little partner in crime. So, sorry, he comes along for the ride sometimes.
Doug, if you knock over my beer, we're going to be on opposite sides here.
Yeah.
But right now we're friends, okay?
Good times.
What about you, Jake?
One of my favorite things that I'm using right now, and I've been using power for quite some time. I'm probably, about 4, maybe even 5 years into using power, and I've used all the iterations of, crank arm base and crank.
You mean a power meter? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
That measures your power when you're riding.
Correct.
So just quick backdrop. Power meters are basically like they're strain gauges. And it's pretty straightforward. Strain gauges have been along for a long time, but it's how much metal bends, and they can detect, at a certain temperature, metal bends a certain amount of, and basically you can detect how much pressure or power you're putting into the pedal stroke at this point, or it might be pedal, or it might be the crank arm, or whatever it is.
Yep.
But that's how a power meter works, and it's a fantastic tool for cyclists to be able to figure out how much power they're putting into the bike.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the truest form of us being able to compare ourselves to each other, and it's not a soft science. I mean, they're all going to have their own ranges of deviation or inefficiencies, but
right.
There's hub based, so like the center part of your wheel. There's crank arm based. There's spider based, and Garmin has their Vector 3, which is their newest and actually pretty popular power meter that they've offered. They came out last October of 2017.
Seems like it's recent, yeah.
So Vector's a pedal, right? Pedal
Correct.
power meter.
Yeah, and so they have two different options of it. There's the Vector 3 and then the Vector 3S. So the Vector 3 is dual pedal power, so it's got a power meter in each pedal. And then there's the 3S, which just has the non-drive side pedal that is going to use an algorithm to determine roughly what your total
doubles it.
It basically does double it. So
yeah.
So I've been using that, and I have a little bit of a history with having some imbalances in my legs. And it basically stems from when I had a little mountain bike spill and spent a couple days in the hospital with a broken femur, and got that thing screwed back together. So I kind of have to mind my P's and Q's, make sure
Were you listening to Taylor Swift when you were wrecked your
jamming
mountain
to
bike?
Swift.
No.
Luckily, he didn't pass out.
Yeah. I actually wasn't listening to anything that day other than myself hitting the dirt after I tried to dodge a deer in the middle of a single track trail. And anyhow,
Was the deer listening to Taylor Swift?
probably. So
that's why I didn't hear you.
She
coming.
went one way, I went the other, and my other way was down, and I landed on a rock, broke the hip. But anyway, fast forward to now, I still have some muscle tightness and things of that nature. So I started using those, and I'm using the Vector 3, so it's a dual-sided power meter. And what's really nice about that is you can actually look at your pedal stroke independently, and you can look at your left versus your right and get like actual true clean numbers. So you can look at percentages like of your total power produced, how much of it's coming from your left leg and your right leg. And I can tell you that when my leg starts to feel a little tight and I can feel it kind of knotting up a little bit and the IT band starts to get a little bulky, I'll go back and I'll look at my power numbers, and sure enough, if you're not paying attention, all of a sudden I'm 53% on my left leg and I'm 47 on my right, and I'm imbalanced. So that tells me that I need to start paying attention more to my off the bike activities, whether it be strength training, whether it be some flexibility work, or some drills while I'm on the bike doing some single leg work, or really just trying to clean up my pedal stroke so that I can, get that balance. Because if you start to show those imbalances, you'll lose power. You'll start to develop some hip issues. You can start to develop knee pain. You can start to have like favoriting of one side versus the other, and that just leads to inefficiencies on the bike.
Yeah,
that's something we don't want. So I'm really digging that.
Now the Vector 3 is an update from the Vector 2 and 1, and the Vector 2 and 1 also had these extra little pods.
Correct.
So one nice thing about the Vector 3 is the weight is also down.
Correct.
Which is like, so you're getting like one of the, I mean, in cycling, there's a lot of, we call them like weight weenies, and there are people that are like obsessed with the weight of the bike, but it's a thing, right? And so it's like, it's nice that the Vector 3s are just a pedal.
Sans pod, yep.
Yeah, you slap them on there. It's not quite as critical about how tight you tighten your pedals, where some of the other
there's no like
older
true
vectors.
like torque spec and calibration that you need to do when you're actually installing them. There is a calibration process that you use when you're using your head unit before you go out on a ride, and it only takes 10 seconds.
Which is true for all power meters for the most part.
Correct.
Unless there's some weird power meters out there that are probably not doing things right. But yeah, I mean, a lot of that calibration is like, okay, you know, these are strain gauges. They need to be calibrated.
Yeah.
So
How much are they?
The Vector 3 retails for $999, so they're $1,000. They're a little on the spendy side. Thankfully, Garmin takes care of our team a little bit, but that's neither here nor there. But and then they have
dialed site.
oh, geez.
Shameless plug.
yeah. There is the 3S though, which is
like
kind of,
$600?
it's like $600 or $649 if I'm not mistaken for the left side. And what's cool about that is the drive side pedal. It's not like it's a dummy pedal that does nothing. You can actually upgrade that down the road. So let's say that your pocketbook can't afford that $1,000 drop right now, but you know eventually you'd like to be able to upgrade that. Well, you can, and then you can actually buy the power meter. Then you uncork it. It's just got a simple, I think it's a 3mm Allen bolt.
You drop in the strain gauge.
Yeah, you take out the plug and then you put the actual strain gauge in there and tighten it up, calibrate it, and you're off to the races.
Wow,
you know?
that is fancy. Well, and just for people, like a lot of people, the Vector S is a very good option because for the most part, I mean, your numbers, you know, so they're taking the left side power, which is the non-drive side power, and they're doubling it, and that's pretty close, right? Like, and you can, so a lot of us, you know, we'll do a lot of our workouts based on powers. Like you do, you know, interval workout or whatever it is, and if you're off by like 5 or 10 watts, it's not that big of a deal. I mean, the point is do your workouts, like go do a workout, do something that's like based on, and so like a lot of, you know, I have like a simple workout that's, you know, it's like 10 by 1 minutes at 300 watts, right? Like you guys are going to laugh because it's so easy, but like, and then, you know, but you have this workout and it's like, it doesn't matter if it's 310 or 330 or whatever it is. The point is that you hit this thing and then you have this like short recovery and then you hit it again and then you have the short recovery and then you hit it again, and that you do these workouts, and power is just the best way to do it. You know, and if you're in the wind or, you know, going downhill or going uphill, you know, the power is going to be
constant,
the same. And that's why power meters, I think, are really valuable. So
and it actually does a couple of the little things too, which is kind of nice for your fit. So when you're actually pressing on the pedal, if your cleat position is incorrect or you're pushing on the wrong side of the pedal, I mean, you want it to be at basically like a dead zero, which would be you pushing on the exact spot that you want to be pushing on. If you start pushing a little bit laterally, you're going to start to get a plus number. And you can actually see where you're making impact on the pedal. So if you're pushing too far out on your foot or your cleat position is incorrect, you're going to start getting this plus number. And I think it goes up to +4 or 5. If you start coming too close inward, you're going to start to get a negative number. So you can really clean up your pedal stroke with respect to looking at where your foot's at on the pedal. You can take a look at your left-right balance, and then you can actually look and see where you're generating watts from your pedal stroke. So you can see at what degree you're engaging and starting to develop your power, and when that starts to exit on the backside, so that you can look at how efficient you are with your whole entire pedal stroke. So you can really clean things up just by, you know, the simple fact of adding this particular power meter. And you can get yourself going on a trainer, and you can start to work on some of the neuromuscular adaptations. You can work on some of the strength training, and then you can do the off the bike stuff with the flexibility and the strength training to really start to find balance. And you'll end up cleaning up your pedal stroke, and you'll be more efficient, and you're going to generate more power, which is going faster on your bike. Hopefully. So just kind of a neat little bit of tech that I've actually really grown fond of.
I think that's a great piece of tech. Good call.
Yeah. Okay, so that is our training tech. Let's jump into topic number 2. This one's kind of a fun one because we had an interesting spring and winter, and we actually had one last year too. But let's talk about bad weather racing. So, have you guys got any good stories for us? Some bad weather racing? Some time that you went out and just got absolutely annihilated?
Yeah, I've got stories like that. That Jake was saying, like, it's been a crazy winter. Some of our listeners might be in the, New England area in the United States, and it's just like they have just had a crazy spring, right? Where it's just like they
winter
had
and spring.
Winter/spring. Well, they just had snow I feel like they had snow in mid-April.
Yeah.
And so
Ohio just had snow like a couple, like not too long ago. Yeah.
So, and then I don't know if you guys remember Boston Marathon, which is in April, and that was the times were super slow. Like the conditions were really horrible, like very, very cold.
It was like 35 degrees and a 20 mile an hour headwind for most of the race. And Boston is a race that's point to point.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it was a headwind and driving, pelting rain the whole day.
That's where it's so the London Marathon was not too long after Boston.
Oh yeah. Okay.
It was, if you analyze those results, you can so see how the way the environment that you train in at the elite level especially will absolutely affect where people place. You look at Boston,
right,
and you have Desi wins and the Japanese guy wins. Oh, what's his last name, Matt? Starts with a K.
I don't know.
Yeah, I forget, but I feel so bad because I just read a big bio on him and he's an awesome guy.
Yeah.
But so those are guys who have both those athletes have trained in a lot of rain and a lot of bad weather, a lot of cold weather. And the Kenyans really struggled. Now, granted,
they blew apart.
Yeah. Now, granted, there was this third place guy, I think was a Kenyan, but was definitely favored to win the race. And when you look at then London a couple weeks later, it was hot in London. I think it was the hottest recorded London marathon ever. And you look at the top finishers, Mo Farah, Eliud Kipchoge. Those are the guys who, trained and live in that heat. I'm sure you take the cold weather athletes and put them in that sort of humidity and heat, and they're going to crack.
Right.
But you take those same guys and put them in pouring, freezing rain. The tables turn.
And Des is from like Michigan area.
Cold winters in Michigan.
Right. So she probably lives in like the Ann Arbor area in Michigan.
That's cold.
Which is where the Hanson stuff they have Hanson stores kind of all around the Detroit area. So I'm not exactly sure where she's, from, but I imagine it's kind of that Ann Arbor area, which, very cold winters.
What's interesting, Galen Rupp was in the race, and he's kind of a local favorite because he trains and grew up here in the Portland, Oregon area, and he detonated. He fell apart.
Yeah, he has always struggled with, he has some like asthma issues and things like that. And I think, people would definitely say, okay, well, if the conditions aren't right, he doesn't have the greatest race in the world. But I think, that he's had some good races in difficult conditions. He's,
and there's also Boston cold is different than Portland cold. Like Boston cold is cold.
Oh yeah, totally different. Portland cold is like,
45.
Yeah, 45. In Boston cold is
0.
Yeah. No, they have snow. They have they get so much snow there. And just if you look at like the guys' times were decent in that race, but the women's time was 2:39. That's slow.
Yeah, 20 minutes slow.
Yeah, that's crazy slow. Yeah. So, I just think that the race.
You think about that, men generally have more. Well, they definitely have more body size to them. There's more muscle generally, so there's going to be a little bit more heat production through those muscles. Now, you could argue too that women have usually more adipose tissue, more fat percentage.
Right. Well,
so
it just depends if
at that level, it's probably
Maybe.
negligible.
Yeah.
But there's definitely there's bigger. The Japanese guy who won is a bigger, stronger looking runner. He definitely is creating more heat.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I think the people, and this is just my guess, is that the people that just hung in there and stuck it out were the ones that did really well. And the people that were just like, yeah, I'm shutting down, I'm done. Like,
did you know? So the Japanese guy who won works for the government, and he works 40 hours a week and just now became a professional marathoner.
What?
Yeah.
What was the story with the woman who came in second place?
The woman
Was
that
she
came
like
in
a nurse
second.
or something
Yeah,
like that, and
she's a
just
nurse.
like a
Sarah,
amateur runner.
Yes.
Sarah, she didn't have a sponsor. Sarah Sanders or
yeah,
something.
we can talk about this a lot, but I think
Omissions and corrections.
the great thing with like I need to get his name for errors and omissions,
Oh,
but
errors and omissions.
there's the great thing about professional running is you can go down the line of great runners, and a lot of them had jobs, had careers. I mean, Roger Bannister was a doctor.
Right.
I mean, you have these guys who they're hyper focused, high achieving, and it's a sport that requires an intense amount of discipline. And I mean, you're going to find these people that just professional running generally isn't enough for them. They've got to be doing a lot. I mean, Kipchoge is a brilliant person. If you've heard the guy talk, he really is, and he's very like when he trains, he doesn't train in his like he does not train out of a mansion. This guy, when he was training for the sub 2 hour marathon, went and stayed like in like a farm rural community, and was like, okay, the Japanese guy's name is, oh boy, I'm gonna mispronounce this. Hold on, here we go.
Kawasachi.
Oh yeah, Yuki. Oh god, Matt, go.
I don't know.
Kawasaki?
Not even close. No, not Kawasaki.
Kawauchi.
Yeah.
Kawauchi.
I
That's what I would have been saying after
he's
that
a
race.
great athlete.
Kawa,
I
ouchie,
apologize.
my legs. Oh.
No,
Have you guys? Have you ever run the Boston Marathon?
No, I have not.
I've run it with. I basically paced a friend for the Boston Marathon, and I qualified for like I don't know 4-6 years or something like that in a row, and it was like I paced a buddy, and it was. I mean, the conditions were nothing like they were this past year, so I can't imagine running into a headwind for a marathon.
Lance, you have quite a bit, right?
I've raced it 3 times. Interestingly enough, my fastest marathon ever was at a Portland Marathon in a driving rain.
Kept you nice and cool, right?
Yes, yeah, because I overheat easy because I'm a big guy and I have a fat suit on me, and so yeah,
You could have won the Boston Marathon this last year.
What was your time?
3:13, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jake,
So
what
it
is-
was respectable.
We should take guesses on what Jake's marathon would be if he didn't break, if his hip didn't give up on him before. She's got the aerobic capacity to go pretty
I
quick.
used to be a runner. I used to run quite a bit, actually, until I was about 25 or 26,
but
and
a
the doc shut me down. That's I've got lots of hardware in this old body. I've got titanium screws in my femur, my femoral neck. I've got 2 6-inch rods in my thoracic spine, thoracic 3, 4, 5, and 6, and 7 are all fused together. So, and that's from an old motocross thing. But long story short, I used to run, and I used to enjoy it, and it was fun, and I used to motor along pretty good. I was doing a lot of my running when I was like 25. So like you back in the day, back in the Stone Age, I didn't run with any kind of technology because it probably was back in the Stone Age. But I could move along at a pretty decent pace, and I could go forever and a day. As a matter of fact, I got a funny story. I'll tell it really quickly. Back when I was in high school, I was a baseball player. I had a big motor, and my coaches kind of figured this out when we used to have our 7th period PE when baseball was out of season. We would be out there, and they would make us run. It was November time, so they would do the turkey trot. So
Baseball players are on the turkey
yeah,
trot.
So, but the thing was, is like the cross country team was for some reason they showed up to the turkey trot. So all of the different sports that weren't in season, so pretty much everybody except for was it football maybe at that point in time that was still kind of doing their thing, would go out and they would do the turkey trot. And it was a 5-mile run, and you would basically stick your hand out, and they would have all these points that you'd have to hit, and you have to get all the color markers, and you do your run. My baseball coach knew that I could run a little bit, so he went up and made a bet with the cross country coach, like, hey, my center fielder is going to take your little cross country guys. We've got a lot of these guys that were I don't know, they're like a lot of Hispanic guys. We're in Southern California, and they just were these soccer cross country guys that were small and could run for days. And anyway, we do this. The coaches make their bet. We go out there and we do the run, and I'm just pacing these dudes and just kind of cruising along. And I wasn't a small kid. I mean, I was 6 foot tall, maybe about 165, 170 pounds. But in comparison to these guys, they're like 5'4", and they're like 125 pounds exactly. Right. They're just like bebopping around. So we're doing our run, and I'm pacing these guys, and they're kind of like, who's this guy that's keeping up with us?
Baseball player.
And we come down to the final mile, and I had power that they didn't have, and I opened it up, and there's like this long breezeway, and I I just laid it down right there, and I just left him behind. And my baseball coach was jumping up and down. He was so excited. He's like, I told you, he's going to take him down. I came across and I beat all the cross country guys. So, those were my running days. So.
You won your baseball coach a beer that day.
Probably. I should probably call him up.
That is, I mean, that's when you look at, I think when you look at some of the history of the greatest endurance athletes, some of them did not start out in some of these sports. No. They were in other sports. I mean, some of the best endurance athletes I know were soccer players who just, they could run around all day.
And I bet you the best endurance athletes on the planet aren't participating in anything right now because they just don't know.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you're being born to run. Those, I mean, you talk about like tribes of runners.
Right.
That's,
Tarahumara, exactly. Yeah. So it's just kind of a crazy thing. But I used to run. I used to like it. And then the doctor shut me down because I started to develop a little bit of arthritis above and below where those fusion spots were.
Why did he shut you down?
And I had another doctor that wanted to do more fusion back there. I'm like, heck no. And then I went to another doctor and had a consultation on just a second opinion. And he's like, well, you know what? You've got a couple options here. He's like, you can continue to run and it'll probably break down eventually. I don't know if we need to do fusion surgery right now. But my recommendation is stop running and start doing something that's more low impact. I'm like, I like to ride bikes. He's like, perfect. So jumped on that, started doing Pilates and got a new mattress. Still have to this day. This Tempur-Pedic, man, that thing saved my life too. And all of my symptoms basically went away, and I don't really have those problems anymore. So, but if I were to go run a marathon, I don't know, what do you think? About 6 hours?
No. He'd be under 4. He'd be well under 4.
Yeah. It's just,
absolutely.
I think the marathon is one of those weird events where it's like, it pays to put in the miles, so it would hurt you.
Yeah. What would you liken it to in terms of a bike ride? Like kind of like an STP thing?
Yeah. No, I mean like 100-miler. And that's just
it's a century.
Yeah. But it's different because it beats you up a lot more.
Yeah. It's just
so much more impact.
Running is so much more high impact. I mean, like you think about your typical pro cyclist can train up to 30 hours a week, and in the 30s there is no pro runner training 30 hours a week. That'd be crazy mileage.
And the pro runners are some of them will do like a pretty crazy. Well, they'll do like weights and all these other things and stuff like that. But for the most part, they're not running 30 hours a week. And cyclists really can do like 25, 30. I mean, they can do a ton of hours.
Oh, yeah. I took a peek at, who was it? Terpstra. I think it was Nicky Terpstra's build up last year. He posted some of it. And his build up to the Spring Classics, that dude was riding like 35 hours a week or something.
That's insane.
I mean, he was putting out crazy mileage.
Training camp this past year, I was a little suspect because I'd never done this kind of volume before. And Michael Myers insisted that we're going to get this done and we're all going to come out of it like, shiny and smelling like roses. And I was like, all right, well, I'll give the old college try. Over 8 days, we rode, I think it was 28 hours, if I'm not mistaken.
28
hours over 8 days.
Yeah.
So,
that's serious training.
And it was a lot of miles. It was big volume, and there was a lot of climbing in there too. I mean, our average day was like 3,000 or 4,000. We had a couple days in there that there was a 6,000 foot climb. There was an 8,000 foot climbing day, and we had a day in there that was 115 miles. And that 115 mile day, we averaged. It was about 6,000 feet of climbing. I think we averaged like 21 miles an hour, and we were moving along pretty good. So
I should just start training right now for next year's training.
Exactly.
That's what I should do.
But you know what? He was right. We came out the backside of that. Like, you were a little tired when it was done, but you kind of do an active recovery ride and you kind of mosey right back into your normal training routine. And like, you're like, holy crap.
Yeah.
I feel pretty good.
Yeah.
My FTP went up and this is a good thing.
Yeah.
So I was pretty happy with that. And I'll definitely be signing up again for next year. So,
yeah. And that's, when you look at what type of athletes can embrace that type of training. I think it does take a specific sort of. Now, Jake, you just telling that cross country story tells me something about you. Is that your whole life you probably had a very high VO2 max? I'm sure.
Potentially,
now we can sit here and debate what's the importance of VO2 max. VO2 max just shows your genetic ceiling, basically. That's
it's like knowing your potential.
Exactly,
and that's why I never wanted to test mine.
I got mine tested. And I love it. You should, Matt. I bet you would see a good number.
No,
you're a guy who ran 100-mile weeks. I could take a guess at what yours is.
Yeah, and I had a pretty good guess at what mine was when I was at peak fitness and stuff, and I was like, I know what it is, and I have a feeling it's one of those numbers that's like, you're not ever gonna make it to the Olympics. It's just like one of those things where it's like you're good, but you're not great.
There are some,
but then if you just know those numbers, it's like, so I in high school I dated this girl, and she has been in all these books and stuff like that, right? Like she's like, she was a very good runner. and she tested extremely high, highest VO2 max tested by a guy named Jack Daniels, who you might know. He's like a big coach guy.
Oh, sorry, I was thinking,
Jack Daniels, not the drink,
yeah,
but
okay, my bad.
he's the guy. He's one of the guys that like pioneered VO2 max testing.
Yeah.
So, and she, she's gone to the Olympic trials a whole bunch of times, but she's never made the Olympics. And then it's like, if you know your potential, and then you fall short, right?
Running
then you're
economy.
like, then it's like, hey. I just don't want to know. I don't want to know for sure.
It's
then
like
you could
knowing,
dream. Like
it's
maybe
like
I
knowing
can make
the
the
day
Olympics.
that you're gonna die.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like knowing that like you have a firm. Now, I think that there's a lot. I mean, there's so many other numbers that are important though. But that's just Jake. You telling that story shows me you probably are somebody who could absorb a 28-hour week. Now, there's plenty of athletes that cannot absorb a 28-hour week like that. But
and then I'm not sure also like if VO2 max is the number that you would want to look at for like absorbing high volume.
Yeah,
so
you'd probably want to look at like energy efficiency. VO2 would be big though, just because it's going to show. There's a lot of different numbers you would need to look at.
Right,
muscular
that's
endurance.
Like that.
I think
that's like that.
huge.
Like, hey, this person's going to do really well in like an hour-long event, right? So it's just I just think there might be different numbers. To look at. It's tricky to know. Like for me, it was like the 10K, right? Like, or even the marathon. It's like that's your VO2 max. Is like it's kind of like your potential.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And I think I maximize my potential. Not anywhere close to making the Olympics. So, yeah. So that's fine.
You are definitely a local hero, though.
Local.
You're
hero.
probably the closest one at this table to the Olympics, though.
No.
You're a D1 runner.
I think so. I'm sure. Well, if Jake just gave the old college effort, he would.
There you go. Yeah.
Jake and Lance are probably a little too old to be talking about anything with those.
Ship has sailed.
Oh, this is too much pressure. Does that mean that I have the most potential?
Yeah,
You're being
actually,
the youngest.
right.
That's
past
what
that time.
Actually,
Past that time.
you shouldn't have brought that up. You're it.
I don't know. I think
you are the winner.
I'm not sure if me and Ben Canute are on the same level. He's got me by quite a bit.
Fun. All right. Well, we got time for another little quick thing. Just real quick. Let's talk about. I'm sorry. Go
We
ahead.
never actually really talked about bad weather racing, like our own personal.
We
went
did,
way
and
off the
I
rails
think
there.
That's okay.
I think we used up all of our time, but we can do one
For
or two
another
things.
day.
I want to talk about some rituals and routines, but
Okay.
we can
Oh,
leave
that's a
that for
good one.
another day and time, unless you want to run around the table real quick and talk about some bad weather. Because I've got a good story. It's a good one. It's
Let's
a
do
doozy.
bad weather.
You wanna do bad weather?
Okay,
Yeah, let's go
Evan,
bad
you
weather.
jump. Well, did you finish up your story? I think you kind of started broaching the subject.
We just started rambling about the Boston
Okay, so-
Marathon,
so
and then
straight to boom.
somehow we
Give-
went to VO2 max. I don't even know how we got there.
I have no idea how we got there.
Okay,
I'm bad.
sorry.
It's
It's
Matt and Jake and
rat hole.
their little beer that they had.
Okay, so the Ironman before the last one I did was Ironman Canada. I felt like I was in really good shape. The weather conditions were not ideal. It was summertime, so you pack your bags. I grab my backpack. I throw in my tri outfit. Good to go. I go up there to Whistler, Canada. Turns out that the weather conditions can be pretty cold there in the summertime. I was ill prepared, and the race conditions were, sleet and snow and rain mix, and the Whistler course, you're dropping down. I mean, you can imagine Whistler skiing, right? So you're dropping down these huge slopes on a TT bike, and you're gonna get cold if it's sleeting out. Yeah,
And you
so
were like just in the water too.
right. So some pro tips. One thing that I did was I took a trash can bag, like just like cut it, and I put it underneath my jersey, and I basically made like a plastic square underneath my jersey. And two things here. One, I think it does keep you really warm. I think it helps a lot, right? Because you're trapping in a lot of heat and keeping water out. So, and then the other piece is, if you're keeping something kind of tight to the body, I think that's pretty aerodynamic, right? So if you're obsessed with aerodynamics, like all triathletes should be, then this is what you're thinking, like, okay, I don't want to wear a big jacket. I don't want to put my parka on and then, have to like sacrifice, 20 minutes of time that's just aerodynamics. So you're thinking of all these little things. So I thought about that, and then
How'd you put it on? I'm trying
I
to picture
put it
that.
on after the swim.
So
I had
did you
10-minute
cut arms in it, or did you just like
it's just a
slip it
square.
underneath your?
I cut a square in the trash bag and put it.
Did it stay
from my
put?
waist? Yeah, it did. And then it actually warmed up on the bike ride, and I think I got rid of it mid ride. But some other pro, Miranda Carfrey, is that the woman that's won like 2?
Oh, yeah.
Miranda Carfrey, yeah.
She's won a couple of the world championships, I think
Yeah, she's
2.
won 2 Konas, I think.
Yeah.
I think 2.
And
she still holds a marathon
she
record.
mentioned it in like one of her like YouTube video clips, and I was like, right on, I did the right thing. If this girl thinks it's the right thing, then I maybe,
I mean, pro cyclists use newspapers, so same idea. Yeah.
Successful
newspapers.
hack then, yeah.
I feel like that's a decent hack,
Yeah, that's a
and
nice
for
little
any of our listeners, take it, use it,
Yeah.
do what you
Hey,
will.
we got some
Don't-
teammates going to Canada this year, right? Bring the trash bags.
Well,
Do we
it's
have
just-
some? I think.
Check the weather forecast. Don't just assume it's summertime and throw your tri jersey. That was a mistake.
There's an app for that. Yes.
Yeah. So
How about you, Evan?
So I have a back to bike racing story. My days as a Cat 3 way back when. I was racing Harrison's Tomb road race, which is at the end of it's called the Queen Stage Race in Southern Ohio. The big one, everybody loves to go to it. I guess in Ohio, I consider them the big hitters, but that's a good racing community, but nothing like it is out in Oregon or Colorado or California. But it was a 3-day race, and the last day it was pouring. And I mean, like, anybody who's been to the Ohio River Valley knows that we don't get as much rain as you guys do here. But when it rains, it is like blinding shit.
Storms.
You have like 50-yard visibility. I'm talking like, I mean, buckets dropping. So the rain starts and it picks up fast. In a field of, I think the Cat 3 field was probably 40 or 45 for this race, for all 3 races. And there was, the funny thing was every guy over the age of 35 dropped out, which was funny because I was standing next to one of my buddies who was over 35. He looks at me and goes, "Yeah, I got kids," and goes back to the car. Me, don't have kids, so I got no excuse. I'm doing this race, and I line up and I'm like, oh boy, I am now the oldest person in this race at the age of 23, I think. Nothing but like Cat 3 juniors and like, I mean, strong kids. One of them was Spencer Petrov, who anybody who follows the cyclocross scene knows that Spencer is one of the contenders for the national scene in cyclocross from Southern Ohio. Knew the kid growing up. I raced him from when he was 15, 16. Incredible athlete, incredible person, great guy. He was one of those young idiots, though, who was just about to race in this blinding rain. So we had probably a field like 15 or 16, I think. Out of the 45, almost everybody dropped out. And, I mean, it was a lot of climbing through the Ohio Valley. One of those descents was, no lie, the most terrifying thing I've ever done on a bike. Yeah. I mean, we literally had 50-yard visibility. I had to take off my glasses because I wear contacts, and my contacts are getting destroyed at this point. And it basically became a game of, like, survival at that point. But you got a bunch of people without their frontal cortex fully developed, and everybody's blindly just bombing down these descents and just hammering the climbs. It was just a free for all. Terrible racing. Oh God.
You survived. You didn't crash. Nothing.
Somehow nobody in that race crashed.
Yeah.
It was great. Like the worst conditions ever, and nobody crashed.
How'd you finish?
I finished off the chase group. Well, I was with the chase group, so there was a group of 6 that got away.
Gotcha.
Spencer was in that group. They were just head and shoulders above everybody else.
Wow. Fun.
That's crazy.
Lance, years and years of racing experience here.
I have a lot of bad weather stories, but I mean, the good bad weather story was running that Portland Marathon at in the driving rain and it just cooling me off and me be able to just hammer through it and get my marathon PR. So that was a good one. But last year, It was 2 years ago. During cyclocross season, so I'm going to tell a cyclocross story.
Oh yeah, all right. let me get a beer.
Yes, you get a beer. Are you ready, Matt?
Did
Do you have to be drinking a beer to be telling a cyclocross story?
I have a cowbell underneath my seat that I'm going to.
So this race was out in the Columbia River Gorge. We mention that a lot for some reason, but it's in a little town in the Columbia River Gorge, and it had been pouring for days before the race, and cyclocross is notorious for being in bad weather anyway because it's in the fall. And I had been racing really well that year. I was lining up with the Cat 3s. The finish, the start shoot had about 20 meters of wet grass and mud, and then about 150 meters of 10-inch deep water.
Oh,
So you had to ford a river in
Yes.
this race. Okay.
And the start of a cyclocross race is full out sprint, get to the corner first, because position matters, because it's hard to pass people.
Did you feel like your triathlon history like pulled you through? You're like, I got my
should've
snorkel.
It's right. I'm
got my
ready to
goggles
go.
on.
Can you? So here's a technical question. Can you start on a run?
No.
Oh, because I was gonna say I would just pick up the bike and just sprint through the
Well,
water.
well, yeah, you can, but if you've got enough momentum, it's quicker to ride until
got it.
you
Okay.
get to the point where it's going to be faster to run, and you have to have the judgment to be able to say, I should run now, and pop off and run. Yeah. So
You're gonna love cyclocross.
I'm gonna be bad at it because my judgment isn't good. I mean, I can run and bike, but my judgment is not a good part of my racing.
I could have told you that.
Yeah. Anybody who's bike raced with me knows that I make some poor game time decisions in the middle of races.
You're gonna like cyclocross, yeah.
So the start gun goes off. We blast through the water. I'm actually riding pretty well. I got to the first corner in like third place in a field of, I don't know, 50 or something like that. And it was like a 5-lap race. By the second lap, we had kind of separated, so I was like in third place. And when you've got that much standing water on the course, it's really hard to ride through. But it actually, mud is more forgiving than standing water, because the standing water will actually wash out the mud, so there's rocks that you can't see.
Oh God.
Yeah. And so I'm hammering, and I flatted.
Oh, yeah.
So kind of game over. I put my bike on my shoulder. You have to run to the next pit. And, I got passed by 40 guys. So it was a bummer, because I was like in third place when I flatted. And then it's the whole equipment issue, because there are...
Could you just like run the last lap?
Yeah, you could, but it's
You have to
much,
have your
much
bike with you,
slower.
though, right?
You
Okay,
have to
got
have
it.
your bike with
Yeah.
you.
So you're just slung over your
Yes.
shoulder, you're sprinting.
Yeah.
what was the weather like that day? Was it
It
raining?
was driving rain.
Yeah.
Yeah. The whole day.
Temperature was
42, 40 degrees. It was cold. Yeah.
That's not fun.
There's tents set up, and there's
It's a
people
lot
had
colder when your
fires.
feet are wet.
Yes,
Oh,
it's
God.
just soaked.
what's your suit of choice when you're in that kind of weather, if you will?
I wear arm warmers.
That's just a kit and arm
Yep,
warmers.
Yep.
Are you the guy who will never wear anything on like his calves?
Yep.
Oh man. I'm so soft.
Well,
compared
not
to
for
that.
nothing though. When you're in a cross race like that, between all of the mud and the water and all that other
there's no
stuff that
point.
gloms onto you, like your skin, it just naturally kind of wicks itself
Yeah.
off, and it'll hold on to a little bit. But if you're wearing leg warmers or you're wearing like a full,
Soaks it up.
it like soaks it up, and then things start to bind to it, and
Be
next
almost
thing you know,
colder.
you weigh like 5-10 pounds more because
Right.
you're
If
wearing
it's
too much.
snowing, I'll put on my knee warmers or leg warmers.
How about
Oh,
how about gloves and
Yes,
extremities?
talking about
full finger gloves.
real
reasonable.
quick before we go to Jake, I had my first bike racing season. What was supposed to be my first race in Oxford, Ohio.
Yeah.
We get there, it starts snowing on the way there.
Oh.
And originally they're like, hey, we're gonna ride it out. And this is like Ohio snow. It's building up. We get to the point where we're like, okay, there's about 2 inches of snow on the road. The race organizer is still saying like, hey, we're gonna race, and everybody being like, hey, we just trained all winter, whatever, let's go out and do it. So we're riding up, all of us are slipping. I've already fallen twice just warming up at this point, which is, I'm nervous. This is my first race ever. I'm young. I'm like 18, 19 or whatever. And we are about to get started, and the moto, the cop, starts to pull up, comes around a corner, slides out. Oh. He gets up off his bike, pissed off, puts his hands up, he's like, nah, we're done. And so they call it off.
Call the race off.
So we joke about this day. If that guy wouldn't have fallen, probably would have raced that day.
Oh, well, my personal history wasn't all that bad. I didn't have a lot to really draw on. Like in Southern California, we had summer and summer light, so it
Summer
wasn't
and pre-summer.
exactly. It was never really bad. I mean, there was days down there where it was 100+ degrees, and I'd still go out for a ride because I was acclimated, and you knew where all the water stops were, and that was about as bad as it got down there. I can remember days where like we would be riding out in the canyon, and where I lived it was about 100. You get back into this canyon area, and it goes up to like 105, and then you go up in these like little chutes, and it gets up to like 110, 115 degrees. that gets pretty toasty. And especially when you're climbing back there and that stuff's beating down on you, that can really start to wear. But that was really about as bad as it got. I mean, aside from the Santana winds down there, those things will come out of nowhere. And like, again, when you're riding back in the canyons, there's like these little ravines. If you came by a ravine that kind of shot down, the wind would kind of follow that down naturally. You'd be coming along and you might be feeling like a little 10 mile an hour doohickey coming from the side, and all of a sudden you get hit by like a 50, 60 mile an hour gust, and that thing will deviate you like 3-4 feet out into the road. That gets dangerous if there's cars coming. So it was exciting, but definitely one of those things where you had to sorry. There's a fish tank in here, and one of my fish just jumped out of the water and did a Shamu thing.
I'm pretty sure Doug is eyeing that fish right now.
It made like a Mario sound. So
Yeah, that's
hopefully
like what I thought that was for a second.
That was pretty awesome. Doug doesn't care about the fish
He doesn't?
He kills everything under the sun, but he leaves the fish alone. I think he's got some sort of agreement with them. He knows that they're kind of cool, but
There's a mutual agreement there. Yeah.
so anyway, Southern California, summer light, not a big deal. I moved up here to the Pacific Northwest, been here for just about 3 years, and I think I've seen just about everything that Mother Nature can throw at you here for the most part. I mean, super cold temperatures, riding in the snow, riding in freezing rain, riding in, just torrential downpours. It's all there, and you just kind of acclimate. It's like no such thing as, bad weather. It's just bad clothing choices, right? Mm-hmm. Well, when you get into a race, that kind of changes the dynamics a little bit, because you're at race pace and you're generating a lot of heat. So there's sometimes you'll get out to a race and it's like there's a temperature. It's like about 45 to 48 degrees. Things could go either way. Like, I don't want to wear this because it could be too warm, and I don't want to not wear enough because all of a sudden, the temperature drops just a little bit. So sometimes you're gambling and you roll those dice.
What do you lean towards? So if it's on the fence, what are you usually going to do? Do you go light or heavy?
I err on the side of going a little bit lighter.
Same, yeah.
Because I know that if I really do get that cold, I can just light it up and just go harder.
Yep.
And know that maybe everybody else is suffering, and I can generate a little bit more metabolic heat and kind of save myself. So in a race 2 years ago, it was Kings Valley Road race, like the one that we did this past April. And I'll fast forward to that one in just a second. I erred on the side of it's going to be a little bit cooler. What we weren't expecting out there was Mother Nature throwing just about basically the kitchen sink at us. So we dealt with rain, heavy rain. We dealt with wind, heavy wind, and we dealt with a hailstorm, and we dealt with a little sunshine. I think it was about it was like the last mile of the finish. Like the sun came out for the finish. It was just like almost poetic. And then as soon as you crossed the finish line, it just got all dark and gloomy and started just dumping on us again. I was like, good God, you're killing me, Smalls. So I can remember coming into there's and we talked about this before in a race recap. There's basically two legs on the back leg. So you're going south, and then you kind of make this right-hand turn, and you're kind of going southwest, if I'm not mistaken, which goes into the final 3 miles of some step climbing, and then there's like a 200-meter finish. So we're on that second to last leg, and the wind was blowing so hard, and then all of a sudden you're literally leaning over 10 degrees into the wind just to keep yourself going straight. And there's you couldn't form an echelon because of the way that the road was, and the lead cyclist was out and he was guttering everybody. And then all of a sudden the hail comes down with driving winds, and it's pelting you, and it's stinging your entire body. You're taking it in the face and the arms, and it's bouncing off your helmet and your legs, and you're just oh my God, I want to get out of here so bad. And you want to attack, but you can't because the wind's blowing so damn hard. So we were stuck there for a bit, and it was terrible. And then we made that last turn to start doing the climbing before the sun came out. It started to pour rain, and it was windy. And I can remember Chris Hannell, he came up next to me, and he wanted to know what we wanted to do in that final climb.
Stay warm.
Survive.
The poor guy,
There's
you
still
could see
a race to win.
Yeah,
Wait a second.
his lips were purple, and all around his his face, his cheeks and everything were blue, and he was shivering so bad that two things were happening. His mouth was numb, and he couldn't talk, and he was shivering so bad he couldn't get words out. And he's and that was him basically saying, I can't talk right now. It's he couldn't get words out because he was so cold, and you could see the giant goosebumps on him, and he was just chilled to the bone. So he did everything he could, and he gave us a nice little lead out, and then he fell off, and he was toasted. And thankfully, I think we went out and we did our morning warm ups before the race, and I'm like, you know what, this might be one of those days where I want to slide on the leg warmers. So I was basically wearing a base layer under a jersey, and then I had my jersey and my bibs on, and then I slid on some leg warmers, and that for me, I was fine, and that I was able to thermal regulate, and I didn't ever get too cold. Chris, on the other hand, I think he may have not been wearing leg warmers, and he just got too wet and too cold. And he's kind of a smaller guy, and he's got a really lean body composition, so his body wasn't feeling it. But led me out, and I felt good, and ended up having a strong finish, and actually won that race. And it was miserable though once we got over the top. Riding back, it's a 5-mile ride, and it's all downhill, so you're not hammering. The wind was blowing. We're soaked to the bone, and you just have that wind blowing over, and you're going slower because you just poured yourself out, and you're like, the last thing I want to do is hammer to keep myself warm because I just raced for 56 miles, and you're riding back on this descent. The wind's blowing over you because the rain stopped, and everybody just started to freeze up. I was fine. I'm thankful I got back to the car, jumped in the truck real quick, flipped on some clean, dry clothes, and I get out of the car, and the 50s group who started after us, they had just gotten back, and one of our teammates, and God bless his soul, Ian Gibson, gets up to the car, and he is livid that he is so cold. And I've never seen somebody so bad. And I've told this story a million times. If you heard me tell it before,
he was just mad at the cold.
But he couldn't. He was shivering. He was uncontrollable shivers. It was shivering so bad, and he was so pissed off that he was so cold, and he was trying to get his jersey off, and he couldn't get it off. It was stuck to him because it was so wet. So he's trying to zip it down. He's trying to get it off, and he's pissed because he can't get it off, and he's so cold. And he's trying, what happens when you're pissed? You start wanting to curse a little bit. So he's wanting to drop the F-bomb, and he can't get it out because he's shivering so bad. So he's like, he just kept going. He must have done that 10 times, and I didn't know whether he never got it out. He couldn't
that's
talk.
a shame.
He couldn't compose a sentence to get it off him, and I didn't know whether to call 911 because this guy's going to die of hypothermia, or to fall on my ass laughing because he couldn't drop an F-bomb. So I ran over there and I zipped it down for him, and I pulled off. I'm like, "Don't worry, Ian, I got you, buddy." And yanked his jersey off him and put a blanket around him. And he went and sat in the car, and he was so upset. And about 15 minutes later, he emerged. He's like, "Thank you so much. I was so effing cold." And that's just a story we tell every year, and that's Kings Valley, and that was my one of my favorite moments in cycling that kind of scared me a little bit, but it was actually pretty funny, and it's a fun story to tell. But it was definitely
I think
bad weather racing.
Yeah, to wrap up the bad weather racing, I think especially when you're from these regions that are prone to that kind of racing.
Yeah.
There's a real brotherhood behind that. I mean,
survival of it.
Oh yeah, I mean, between Ohio and Michigan, the race stories you get, at least from where I'm from, were stuff that brought us together. When there was bad weather, we were complaining about it, but you bet everybody was out for that race.
Yeah,
because you want to have that story of driving rain and sleet during a race, and you wanted to be out there with the guys, and that was I mean, I know even for triathlon, when I used to work for a race company, we would try and drive that race unless there was lightning right over that lake, we were doing that race almost no matter what. So yeah
the epic ones are fun
makes
to
those
tell
stories. Yeah.
All right, so let's wrap this thing up. We'll run around the table, and we're going to hit one last thing. Anything you want to talk about, whatever's on your mind, whatever you are excited about right now, whatever.
Okay.
Matt, one last thing, buddy.
Yeah. Well, so I'm excited about the podcast. I think it's going well. I think we're doing a good job, and I'm excited about the feedback, and I'm thankful for the listeners that are taking their time to, whatever they're doing. They're going for their long run or maybe their bike ride or whatever it is, and they're listening to us along the way. Some people are listening to us while they're doing their work, which is just super cool. So I'm appreciative of that. It is a lot of work, so I'm appreciative to Jake that's putting in a lot of time for the editing pieces, putting together the schedule for this, all the equipment, all the stuff that goes into behind the scenes stuff. I'm super appreciative of that. And so, my ask of our listeners is, two things. And one is shoot us recommendations for topics.
What do you guys want to hear?
Yeah. I mean, if you have questions like,
yeah.
Especially like we tend to just gloss over stuff, whether that's
Guide us, yeah.
Right, where it's like, like we'll just be like, oh, well, power meter was this, and I was hitting this, this percentage of my FTP or whatever. Like, I don't know what FTP is. Like, hit us with your questions, and we will be happy to have those to answer. And one reason is it helps us to have content to go over and just go through it. It helps us to have some direction in how we want to put things together. So it will help us if you guys, send in your feedback. And then the second piece is, again, part of feedback is like, whether, you can rate us or subscribe or whatever you can do that way to the podcast, that does help the podcast a lot. And we appreciate it.
Yeah.
So that's my 2 cents.
And if you ever want to reach Matt, ask Matt directly a question, shoot him an email, matt@dialedpodcast.com.
And then general questions for the podcast?
info@dialedpodcast.com.
info@dialedpodcast.com. Okay.
Yeah. I just want to say thank you to listeners too. I know we've gotten some awesome, just like people come up and say like, hey, listen to the podcast. It's awesome. And it's just great to, I think we can make it better by just like you said, getting feedback from the listeners. I want to talk about what people want to hear. I can sit here and talk all day. Yeah. I can ramble. People don't want to listen to me just ramble though. So I want to ramble about like things you guys want to hear about, and obviously, I want to be the physical therapist for this community, and it's for me, it's a passion. It's not really my, it's kind of my job, I guess. I guess I go and I work as a physical therapist, but I want to make sure you're all having healthy race seasons, and I don't want you guys to be poor Jake over there who gets told he can't run anymore, So. So, come, absolutely shoot me, emails at the Dialed Podcast. You can, call East Vancouver Proactive if you ever need a consult or anything like that. I just want to be a tool for the community in that sense. And another little plug here coming up is, like we know, I love cycling history. So when the Grand Tours come around, I get really excited. And we have the Giro coming up.
Oh, yeah. And we have so much cycling stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
So.
And me being Italian, I would love to get some round table bets here.
Gotcha. Lance, one last thing from Lance Romance.
Lance Romance.
That might stick, my friend.
I spilled the beans.
That was funny.
I'm gonna plug something selfish. I want you all to go follow my Instagram page because
The gram.
My self-worth is tied to how many people like my random photos. So go follow my Instagram page. I tend to post interesting pictures. They're not all cycling related. They tend to be more outdoor stuff. But
from the World Traveler.
Yeah.
Where can we find you?
It's at Dr. Hep, DRHEPP. That's
such a doctoral name.
Yeah.
So
at Dr. Hep.
If they're searching in Instagram, as I'm doing right now, Dr. Hep. Nice. HEPP.
Yep.
It's dangerously close to hepatitis.
Go like it.
So, yeah.
I'm following you now.
All right.
You just got you're up. You're plus
I'm
one.
Up one. Look, I just got
you're plus one.
I just got a notice that I got one more follower.
He's got a big smile.
And okay, so if you guys are into cycling, which a lot of the people that listen to this are, there are bikes in the photos. There are beautiful gorge photos. There is like amazing sunsets. Oh, actually, I remember this picture. This is of Fort Vancouver, which is, it's close to where we live, and the colors in this picture are absolutely fantastic. So really, really nice photography, and you should absolutely follow him on Instagram.
Thank you, man.
Matt does a pretty good job with the Instagram too. What's your Instagram, Matt? Are you not looking for followers?
No.
His self-worth is not tied to how many followers.
Let's be real. It absolutely is, and it's. I think it's Matt_Legrand. So let's just do a quick search. MATT_. It's hard to find on the keyboard. LEGRAND, and you will find me on the Instagram. And it's important that you follow me.
Jake, are you an Instagram guy?
I am. I've actually slowed down on that quite a bit. I'm
the only non-Instagrammer here, and
you're the youngest one.
And I don't have a Twitter.
I don't have a
internet.
Twitter.
The internet is a phase. You're good.
The internet's gonna be social media is gonna phase out here in a year
The internet
or two.
is gonna blow over.
It is.
You're good. You're
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, my personal Instagram is MTB for mountain bike. Yeah. That used to be very mountain bike centric back in the day when I first started the gram. So it's MTB_Jake. That is my Instagram. But I do a lot more stuff for the Dialed Cycling team. So there's the @Dialed Cycling team, and then there's @Dialed Cycling. Those are the two accounts that I probably do the most with right now, just to try and help get the word out about the team and show some cool stuff and celebrate our folks on our team and make sure that we're all pretty happy and doing good stuff and being represented. So Lance, was there anything else besides you wanting to pimp yourself on Instagram?
Purely selfish.
Yeah. No, I like that idea. I think we should lead
that's
with.
A good wrap
I think
up,
we should. That should be part of our intro too. Is like hit our Instagrams up, hit our.
We need more egos here. Yeah, there's definitely not enough ego here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you need to follow Lance on Strava too. Give him some kudos there.
That's
but
true.
you just got to follow him just strictly for the ride titles, if
The
nothing
ride
else.
titles.
And you'll get some.
Are you a ride title
Yeah.
guy? Yes.
Oh, gosh.
God, I hate when people just put morning ride. Who's a morning ride person? Shame on you.
No, his are the best titles of all of my followers. He's the best titles.
Every day you log on to
far.
Strava, you're like, all right, what Lance? What did he do today? Where did he ride? And what did he title it? Yeah.
Lance should have to each week. He has to say his best title from
best
that
ride
week.
title.
Best ride
That would be
title
hard because he would have at least seven really good ones.
Fun stuff. My one last thing. Gosh. Again, like you guys, I'm just super thankful for this. I'm thankful for you guys sitting at the table here. I know it sounds kind of cheesy, but
you're the guy putting in the work. We appreciate it.
Here we are. We've been rambling on for an hour and a half, and
Oh boy.
Killing it.
This is for the long train ride. This is the Zone 1-2 long ride.
Sorry, folks. This one ran a little long, but it's all good because we're having fun. But it's just one of those things. That was the driving reason. I've always wanted to do one of these, and we did it, and we started doing it. And I just sit around, and again, time vortex. Time just disappears. I look down. I'm like, well, wow, we've been here for over an hour. Oh, now we've been here for an hour and a half, just talking about stuff. And I love how eclectic things are, and how we can bounce all over and just touch on all these cool topics that I'm interested in, even some of the stuff that I'm not so interested in. But still, it's something that flows. So I'm appreciative of that. Appreciative of you guys sitting at the table. I'm appreciative of the people and the feedback that we're getting. It's all fun stuff, and just thankful for being able to ride my bike in a beautiful place, and I'm thankful for good weather. I'm thankful for good friends and health. So good stuff, and kind of happy about that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So on that note, we're gonna wrap this thing up. You guys have anything else?
All right. We will catch you guys next time.
All right.
Thank
you
listening.
for listening,
Hey,
everybody.
for Matt, for Evan, for Lance, for myself, Jake. Thank you for listening, and bye for now.